Basically, muscle activation techniques evaluates the ability for muscles to contract efficiently. Because whenever we have stress, trauma, or overuse to the muscles, the resultant inflammation alters the communication between the brain and the muscles, so the muscles just can't fire as efficiently as they're designed to fire. And when they can't fire that efficiently, they can't do their job to stabilize joints and protect us from injury. And so we always look at the idea that life's going to beat us up. I mean, we're working out, we're beating our bodies up in the weight room, and really somebody's got to be there to put you back together. And muscle activation techniques does that. It basically says, I mean, what was the end result of the workout, and how much damage did that place on the muscle system? And if these issues aren't addressed, then the damage or the weaknesses that occur in the muscle system set us up for injury. Exercise breaks us down. So exercise actually starts a downward spiral that eventually can potentially lead to injury, which in turn prevents us from getting the results we're trying to achieve relative to overall health. So muscle activation techniques basically addresses that issue. That as we have stresses on the muscle system, the muscles lose their ability to contract efficiently. And when muscles lose the ability to contract efficiently, they lose the ability to shorten. And so basically they lose the ability to move through their full range of motion. And when they lose the ability to shorten, the opposite muscles lose the ability to lengthen. So those muscles actually show up as being tight. And many times in the exercise and health industry, we always focus on the tightness. Well, the reason you have back pain is because your hamstrings are tight or your hip flexors are tight. So we focus on the tightness. With muscle activation techniques, it's saying that tightness is a result of the opposite muscle's inability to contract efficiently. So it's part of the body's protective mechanism. So you think about it from a neurological standpoint, an easy correlation is, what do you do when you walk on ice? The first thing you do when you walk on ice is you tighten up as a protective mechanism. So the natural neurological response is when the body senses instability, the body tightens up as a protective mechanism. And so in the same manner, when muscles lose their ability to contract efficiently, the nervous system senses that instability, and it creates a protective tightening to protect you from injury. So with muscle activation techniques, we use tightness as an indicator of weakness. So we take a completely different approach to improving muscle function or overall body function. It's saying that we want to identify these weak links, because if we can identify and correct these weak links, then we can improve your body's ability to tolerate forces, to lift more weights without injuring yourself. And so the whole idea, if you're trying to get maximum gains in strength and endurance and get the most effective benefits from your workout, you have to have basically your muscle system has to be working at a high level. So that idea that exercise can break us down is the idea that somebody's got to be there to put you back together, so you can continue to go through this 2-step forward, 1-step back process, that in the end result you reach your long-term goal of high performance.
Can I tell you something, Greg? I don't think I told you this. So, prior to MAT, I used to spend a fortune on massage therapy and ART. I haven't spent a penny on massage or ART in 5 years, because I always had that, okay, I did a leg workout, my lower back's tight, I go to see the massage therapist and I say, hey, I need a massage on my lower back. It had nothing to do with my lower back, as you just explained. So MAT has fixed the root problem, which was a huge game-changing discovery for me.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's a perfect statement, because we find, he complained or just recognized that his back was tightening up. And so then we have to say, well, why did the back tighten up in his workout? And most of the time with conventional injury, we focus on that area. We massage the back, we do deep tissue work, stretch the muscles of the spine, when actually through this process, we're able to identify which muscles actually went weak. I would say, I don't care what you can do, I want to know what you can't do, because what you can't do is breaking you down. So his glutes actually got overstressed in the process of the workout, which created the tightness in the back. So we're going to the root cause. So remember, when muscles go weak, they lose their ability to contract into the shortened range. So I just took him into the shortened range of hip extension, which is basically the shortened position of the glutes, and I applied a light force, and he couldn't resist that force. That's saying there's an inefficiency of contraction in the gluteus maximus. And so now through a stimulation technique, I'm palpating and stimulating the origin and insertion of the muscles to increase the sensory reception and basically tighten battery cables, with the idea that when the brain can't send the message to the muscles can't fire efficiently. Use the simple analogy of like having loose battery cables on your car. The brain sends a message, the message doesn't get to the glutes. MAT, the whole role of MAT is to tighten battery cables. So I just stimulated the muscles through palpating the origin and insertion, and I come back, hold it, and I take him into that shortened range, and now he can resist a force in that shortened range, and I can really push as hard as I want, and he can resist that force.
You can actually feel the glutes contract.
Yeah, so now, yeah, and that's that connection, the tightened battery cables, where the brain now is in direct connection with the glutes. So now we've reprogrammed the nervous system. We've basically tied the muscle back into functional movement. So then as I come to the other side, we have the same issue. I just apply a light force, and he can't resist it. So imagine trying to, we say we're training our glutes when we squat, and or the glutes are under significant amounts of load when we squat, and he can't even resist about 10 pounds of force that I'm applying.
So sorry to cut you off, but I think this is going to be a huge discovery for everyone watching. As you see girls and guys who do these crazy quad workouts, squat workouts, but they've got a flat ass.
Yes.
So I think this starts explaining to people, well, I'm training that muscle, at least I think I am, yet I've got a flat ass.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Or I'm training my quads, but I've got, chicken legs. Like, so where's it go? Where's it's happening? Where's the tension going?
Yeah, so that idea that we're only as strong as our weakest link, I mean, the body will get from point A to point B most effectively with what it has to work with. So when you have weaknesses like this, the body's going to be forced to compensate for those weaknesses. So the load is going to be transferred into areas of strength. And so the load may transfer away from the glutes into the quads and hamstrings or into the lower back, which i.e. his back muscles were tightening up. So you end up putting the load into areas that you don't even think you're trying to train. And the more isolated we get, if you look at people that work out, and some people are benching all the time and they got huge pecs, and then somebody else comes in that's working out all the time and benching all the time, and their shoulders are huge but they got flat pecs. It's because the body's figuring out how to pull in other muscles to make up for the weakness. So the body shifts and compensates and puts the load into other muscles. So you may think you're training your pecs, but if you have this disconnect between the nervous system and the muscle system, the load's going to go to the muscles that can fire and fire on demand. Those are the ones that are going to grow. And that's why we get imbalances when we work out, is because we think we're training something and we're not. Muscles move bones, and muscles hold bones in proper alignment. When muscles lose the ability to contract efficiently, they lose the ability to move bones into the position that the structure dictates they can move into, and then they also lose the ability to stabilize joints, which sets us up for potential injury. So the whole goal is to say we don't want to sacrifice stability by gaining mobility. We want to use the stability or increase ability for muscles to contract so that you can actually increase mobility. So without stretching for 5 years, you will actually increase range of motion if all the muscles are properly activated and then properly trained through their full ranges of motion. And when I say that about training muscles through their full range of motion, let's use the glutes as an example. Vince's glutes got overloaded in his workout today. They showed up as being weak. And so we think about, how do you properly train your glutes, or what's the most effective way that you can improve the strength and mass of your glutes? We think we do squats, we do lunges, we do leg press. I mean, there's step ups. There's a lot of exercise that we would say this is actually putting the focus on our glutes. But if you think about it, when the glutes shorten, they bring the leg into hip extension. So I've just shortened the glute here. I've approximated the origin insertion, and it's creating a belly effect in the glute. So same way that I flex my elbow and my bicep balls up. When I shorten or bring if he was to lift his leg, we're going to see a balling up of the glute. That's the shortened position. And you think about those exercises that I mentioned, squats, deadlifts, step up, and we say we're loading the glutes, and not one of those muscles bring us into hip extension. So when we squat, we may be, literally we may still be in an anterior pelvic tilt position. When we lunge, we actually come out and load the glute in a hip flex position. And we think, how many exercises do we actually do to train the glute under load into its shortened range? So isolated glute strengthening is a key factor that's going to transfer over to your ability to squat, your ability to lunge, your ability to load the glutes and other exercises. So we kind of take a shift of we need to get the muscles activated, but then we have to train them through their full ranges of motion. And one of the things Vince and I talked about is that's his focus in training is more toward isolated movements. That he's training each muscle group to isolate them, and in order to isolate them, you actually have to train them into their shortened position or their extreme range. So it kind of gives you a focus as how can you get the most out of your muscles? By training them through their full ranges of motion.